Hey guys, and welcome back to my coverage of the ForzaRC Invitational Series, where we will be tackling Abu Dhabi, the Nurburgring Grand Prix track, and Le Mans Bugatti against Williams, FRF and AMS. After a tough round last time out, I'm excited to be able to share my POV as we were keen to better our strategy in order to acquire a bigger points haul this week. But without further ado, let's get straight into race 1 at Abu Dhabi. This week, I replaced my GT2 RS with an Audi S3 touring car, a tricky front-wheel drive race car to manage, but it fits my driving style perfectly. As a result, however, my class of car was the slowest of the three, so I knew that I would be fighting for pretty much 8th position at best as a result of the performance of the vehicles. We opted to give Force 1 nearly all the upgrades as well, to try and secure a victory, which was mirroring exactly what Williams did last time with Mitch in the 4GT. Hence, he was starting at the front, Rossi in the middle, and myself at the back. FRF and Williams opted to put their touring cars in the middle of the pack, making up for their car's tragic launch off the line, so I had work to do in order to catch them. I was banking though on the lap 1 cluster to regroup the field, hopefully giving me a chance to pass them. As you can see, the touring cars ahead were immediately overtaken by any other class of car off the line, which presented my opportunity to make up positions ahead. Now, when the field is so close like this, naturally the pace comes down and it's very easy to catch back up. Mitch, however, had managed to get quite far into the mid-pack though, so my focus was on keeping out of any trouble on the first few laps so that I could hope that Mitch fell into an unfortunate incident or something that would allow me to catch back up to him. It got a little scrappy, as to be expected, in the tight hairpin, but the contact meant that actually I had a bit of an opportunity here to get by the other Audi driven by FRF's handicap. With the help of Slipstream though, he remained relevant all the way until the main braking zone, and rather frustratingly, he managed to defend his position pretty well, to be fair to him, and it was at this moment that we both had to settle into more of a combined rhythm in order to keep with the pack and not lose as much time as possible so that Mitch could not get away. I definitely felt quicker, but it would be stupid to go for any moves as the first sector still presented an opportunity for Handicap and I to potentially make up some ground. And luckily, our opportunity presented itself, with Williams 7 seemingly sucker punching his teammate into 2 other cars, resulting in 8 seconds worth of penalties being applied to Williams cars in just 1 corner. In fact, I've watched this clip back a couple times to try and comprehend what went on, and I'm still a bit unsure whether it was a genuine mistake or lag, as it does seem a bit crazy to me, to be honest, and I don't really get what was going on whatsoever. But either way, I now found myself ahead of Mitch, and with a nice opportunity to get handicap as well, as he was due to be fighting with 7's Mercedes yet again. Now, it's quite exciting seeing 2 cars of differing abilities up in front, as it often results in overtaking opportunities. Now, often as the car behind, the middle car handicap will be far more focused on what's in front of him, and that results in moves like this becoming very viable indeed, nicely up the inside of the second part of the chicane, and we just about had the legs to defend into the next braking zone as well. Once I had this position, I had achieved the hardest objective of the entire race, to become the lead touring car after starting behind both of the other main competitors off the start. All I had to do now was to maintain it whilst managing constant pressure from behind. Now this, however, is something that you get used to quite quickly in the FRC, and after several quick and consistent laps, I managed to come home in P8, which, given the car, felt like a win. Like it genuinely did feel like a win. And my teammates as well did really well, with Force 1 in P2 and Rossi in P4, resulting in Lazarus taking the lead in this match over Williams. Immediately, we started looking ahead to race 2 at the Nurburgring, where we were aiming to replicate our success. Going with the same strategy again, although the other teams all opted to follow in our footsteps and also place the touring cars at the back. This should be a simpler race to maintain track position, however Mitch's cruise, who's starting just behind, is excellent off the line, and hence things did get a little bit difficult into turn 1. Heading into the first corner, I wanted to stay out of trouble to maintain my position, but Handicap was aiming to cause a little bit of trouble to shake up the order potentially so that he could climb up some positions himself. And some sketchy contact in turn 1 ended peacefully as our cars fell into line. Whilst Mitch's car was better off the line though, I knew that my Audi had better raw pace across a lap, and so I knew that I had time to work out where Mitch was slowest so that I could maybe plan an overtaking move. Once I got past, there was little chance that my car would be overtaken again, as my Audi benefited from increased top speed over that cruise. Although we were in a slower class, Mitch, Handicap and I were able to gain on AMS's Mercedes on this lap, and this is where things got really interesting as Mitch went for a move on TQ, opening up a gap for myself. And on the exit here, somehow TQ managed to get all the way out onto the gravel and basically knocked himself out of the race. And somehow again I managed, after all of that, to get a run onto Mitch. With such overspeed, I pulled to the outside and hit my braking point well, but Mitch braked too early and forced me into taking an outside move into the chicane, and that resulted in a hit that pushed me across the grass, and that was a massive, massive hindrance to my race. After analysing this footage, I'm pretty certain that Mitch saw an opportunity to hinder my race in such a way that it would not be an obvious penalty from the stewards, which, as with any competition at this level, is definitely a common tactic used by drivers. And it's very frustrating, but that's kind of what you have to do in order to succeed at this high level of competition. And let me know actually what you think about that and that incident. But either way, in this case, he didn't get a penalty for this contact, and ultimately this track position aided with his race massively. I now had to deal with TQ again, and I had to do it fast, as otherwise the other touring cars would be able to get away far too quickly. And I therefore sent it on the brakes into turn 1, trying to tackle the beastly Mercedes, and a nice switch back into the second corner allowed another send into turn 3, which is where ultimately I managed to finish this move off and get up another position. Once again, my focus is on the 2 cars ahead, but with them 2 working together, unless they fight, it will be hard to catch. It was also important to ensure that I kept a good mentality throughout this race and not think too much about the earlier incident, as in order to get the best lap times, your focus has to be spot on at all times. Unfortunately, however, in this case, I wasn't quite able to gain enough and make a move in the time that we were given, and this race ended with me in P9 after an FRF disconnect further up the field. But further disappointment hit afterwards when I found out that the P9 was confirmed and there were no penalties given out. It was now all to play for in the final race, where we head to Bugatti, which is a very fun track actually in these touring cars. And it's the same strategy again with all the touring cars at the back, and we were also imminently going to be losing time to Mitch off the start. What could possibly go wrong? Well, not to spoil it for you, but this race proved to be the most difficult of them all, with plenty of incidents to look at. But as of right now, all my focus is on turn 1, so that that gap that Mitch is opening up off the line can be closed up as fast as possible. Here, the time that the Audi especially loses to any car is so obvious that it's pretty much taking the mick, with all the other cars gaining several seconds before we even reached this first braking zone. On this occasion, however, it was pretty uneventful. We managed to close up definitely to the cruise of Mitch, and there was only a half lunge from Handicap to worry about. After the tap though, Mitch had reacquired his gap and had annoyingly managed to get past TQ in the Mercedes, and having a car in between us was about to make things a whole lot harder. I actually got a very prominent impression that the confidence of the AMS drivers was at a pretty obvious low, to be honest, at this point in the evening, with TQ and Storm in their faster cars really struggling with braking zones in the last sector especially, often falling way off the apex and sometimes off the entire track itself. And usually I'd have a certain amount of patience when sat behind cars such as this, giving myself extended gaps to the car in front so that we both definitely stay out of trouble. But in this case, with Mitch ahead, I couldn't take advantage of that luxury, or I would have never have been able to catch him. Unfortunately, just after the chicane, TQ braked very early, and as I hadn't given myself that gap that I should have done potentially, that was kind of that, and I got a 3-second penalty for that contact. And this was definitely going to hurt my final position for sure. But up ahead, you can see just how much of a mess there is, like with the AMS drivers in very fast cars mingling with the slower touring cars. And there were times in this race where things were extremely sketchy indeed. Whilst it had been a tragic lap, I was now back with Mitch, so it was time to start thinking about attacking him. And with the Subaru up ahead, there was a lot of potential for opportunities to overtake, as a collision, to be honest, looked pretty likely. It was in the tighter parts of the track where the field would group up, and that was where things would escalate. And on lap 4, the biggest reshuffle of the order went down. With another tap from handicap, my exit was ruined, and he managed to get by, but the Subaru of Storm was about to hurl the positions around yet again, with Mitch getting taken out, I think that's fair to say, allowing handicap and I up the inside. With Storm's car being so quick, he was now able to get up to handicap, and there was potential there for me to gain yet again, but on this occasion they navigated each other just about well enough so the handicap could retain his position. From here we finally had a bit of an opportunity to get into a rhythm until lap 6, which is now, where Storm missed his braking zone again, and basically this allowed us through, and with this there was another overtaking opportunity on handicap here. With my penalty I had nothing to lose, but I could see that Storm was going to open a gap to get handicap spot, so I aimed to follow through the gap left by Storm really nicely on the brakes, and I managed to make the apex. Predictably though, I received another touring car tap, which ruined my exit, so I even lost out to Mitch as well. Every single move I made this weekend had resulted in me being hit off, and no penalties were ever given out to any of these moves. So I definitely need to work out, like, somehow how I'm going to get around this in future. And again, on lap 9, final lap, an opportunity arose into turn 1 here, but I was shut down with another little tap, and in these touring cars there's literally nothing you can do when this happens, as you just lose traction so quickly. But that move marked the end of my race, as I came across the line in P10 as a result of the TQ penalty that I got earlier. All in all though, we had done it, with Force 1 and Rossi also doing really good jobs in their classes, and we had managed to beat Williams this time out. After being beaten last round, it's just proof that strategy really is key. And that concludes the video, and I really hope you enjoyed my honest insight into how my races went, and if you enjoyed, a like rating and a sub would be massive, and I look forward to seeing you all next time.